Hello, welcome back to the Dialectic Space podcast. It's with me again, Ibrahim Asonko. This is the second episode with my guest, lawyer, and barrister, as we call them in the Gambia, solicitor and barrister of the Supreme Court of the Gambia, Mr. Melvin Roberts. And as the late Dr. Carroll would always say, Oxford trained lawyer. So I think we can rightfully call you that as well. May his
God
soul,
bless his soul.
God
God
bless his
rest his
soul.
soul.
Wonderful, wonderful
Yeah,
person. He was my
definitely.
lecturer too at the University of the Gambia. And so anytime I remember Oxford, my mind goes to him. So we're having earlier in the first episode, we were discussing a lot about Melvin's formative years. We also went into his period working at the Foreign Affairs as Deputy Permanent Secretary, and we're definitely getting into an assessment of the current government of President Adama Barrow and what systems of democracy or even reforms that the country needs in terms of having a system of governance that guarantees stability, that guarantees peace, that guarantees protection, that guarantees development for Gambians, development that is responsive and uplifts our people out of poverty. So that's where we ended, and we're going to continue from that. Melvin, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Sonko. Thank you.
So yes, so I'm just curious, like I was saying, the concept of democracy, like I think it was Churchill's who said, democracy is the worst system of governance except all those that were tested. Ideally, emphasis making the point that we there is not a better form that so far that we know that has been able to protect human beings, protect the sanctity of human lives, among other things. And I think most societies envision or aspire to have a democratic society uh, that also helps to spur meaningful economic growth. So us, we're still a very poor country by different standards. Like you rightly pointed during the first episode, we're still very stagnated in many ways. What is ideally a system of governance that you would think, or perhaps would suggest that we need to prioritize for us to move ahead as a country?
I think we need to, you see, democracy as we know it is tailored within the framework of a society. So, as you quoted Churchill rightly, democracy is basically the messiest form of governance, as he would say, to paraphrase. But then it is the best out of those that have been tested. Now, what is democracy? That's the foundation that we need to establish. I mean, I look at Gambian social media discourse. I listen to Gambian intellectuals. I listen to people in the government, heads of institution, cabinet ministers, and stuff like that. Even the president to an extent. And I believe there's a total disconnect as to substantively what democracy is all about and what it means. Now, if you understand, we lived in the United States where democracy to a large extent was born, or the system of governance termed democracy. So, what is democratic? Now, there was a time in the United States where before you can vote, before you can vote and have a say, you need to be a landowner, a yard owner. And then it evolved. It extended to the black folks, the male black folks. And then it extended to the female black folks, but related only to those that own properties. And then, of course, it evolved yet again to allow for everyone, both white and blacks, to be able to vote and exercise that franchise, their right. Now, the period between the black woman being allowed to vote and the time that period where it was not allowed, it was a democratic system of government. They never said it was undemocratic at that period. It was legal. Apartheid South Africa, at some point, apartheid was legal. It was marked within their framework. Now, then it brings the fusion between what is democratic and what is legal. Now, what is legal? Apartheid was legal. Slavery was legal. Was it democratic? And that gives you a subtle understanding of what democracy is. So democracy is a governance structure for the people, by the people, having a say in how they are governed. Democracy is a social contract that has been entered into by citizens and the governments. It's a social contract. You're allowing for them to be able to lead you. You are choosing a few individuals and saying, I have confidence that you can make the best decision for me. And that is the foundations of democracy, where the citizens can feel, can appreciate, can understand, can realize that the people that they have elected into power are making the best decisions for their welfare, for their interest, for their progress in that society. And because these individuals were elected into public office, the nexus between the citizenry and the government is that social contract that they have entered into between citizen and government. Now, in an ideal democratic society, it has to be regulated. Because if it's not regulated, you have anarchy. You have a breakdown of law and order. You slowly metamorphose into a state of anarchy, a state of disorder, a state of corruption, where one person can decide to take something that is for the benefit of is for the collective interest of every Gambian, and decide that this is what I'm going to use to pay tuition for my child to go to school in the United States. That defeats the purpose of democracy, because democracy is premised on the state architecture protecting the interest and welfare of its citizens and allowing them to progress, to live in a regulated manner prescribed by law. Now, it takes you to the second tier. What is the fusion between democracy and law? Because law, the rule of law, legality, allows for the flourishing of democratic ideals. Democracy can only be guided in a regulated manner by what has been accepted and prescribed by law. Now, who makes these laws? Who enacts laws? The National Assembly, the Parliament. Who are those people that are in the Parliament? They're representatives. And I like that word, representatives. Who are they representing? The people.
Mm-hmm.
So invariably, who is making the law? The people. The people have entered into a social contract with the representatives, with the people that they're electing into parliament. knowing fully well that they will make laws that will serve the best interest of the people that have elected them into office. You're not looking for a situation where there is consistent salary increase for parliamentarians, for representatives, whilst the average Gambian that has elected them into office to make decisions for them, for the collective interest of every Gambian, and there's that disparity, there's that large gap between the earnings of the representative and the person from whom they derive the mandate to be a representative. It defies logic and it defies common sense. Why would I take the task of appointing, of electing Mr. Sonko to represent my interests in parliament, to enact laws that will benefit me and my family and the society and my community? But then Mr. Sonko goes to parliament and you begin to enrich yourself at my detriment. Now you ask yourself, is that democracy?
Mhm.
And that's the fusion between legality, law, and democracy. So the actions of parliamentarians not representing the interest of the electorates that put them there into office is legal. If they now decide to give themselves 100% increment within the framework of the laws that have been set down, within the parliamentary rules, it is legal, is it not?
Mhm.
Is it democratic? And
Yes, it
that
is.
tells you squarely what democracy is. Is that parliamentarian a representative of the people, for the people, and by the people?
I, I guess it's fair to say that it's definitely the tyranny of the majority. And
Exactly.
unlike human rights, which is universal, I think suffices to state that democracy in this form is not universal. And I'm saying that specifically because I do think also societies need to adapt to what works for them. And I also like the fact that as you're analyzing, you're very selective and very responsible in terms of how you characterize some of our way of life, in terms of, like, to view it through or to analyze it through a very Eurocentric sense. Because a lot of our societies are viewed, oh, this is a dictatorial place, or these are savages, or these are, they don't have a system of governance that works for them, when in fact in most of their societies, in the way that they're living, perhaps worse than what we have in some of our contexts. And so the point I'm trying to make is, I think it's absolutely important for the systems of democracy that we have to be adaptable to what represents our way of life and our cultures,
And our
and not to,
reality.
and our reality, and not to take a wholesale idea that is completely foreign, that started somewhere very far away from us, that was hugely influenced by their way of life, by their faith, by their religion, among other values that shape what become, in fact, democracy, and also various societies that over time has practiced it a certain way, including the United States of America. Now, in terms of politics, Melvin, uh, this is something that you write and comment about a lot too, and we're still sticking with the subject of politics, and hopefully we can spend a little bit more time on that. You don't shy away from political conversations, and I think between 2018 2019 there was a period, I'm not sure the precision of or the timing of it, that you declared to be a member of the United Democratic Party, UDP, and you've expressed huge admiration for its leader Usainu Dabo, and during your area commentary too, you talked about him during his tenure as Foreign Affairs Ministry. If you would talk very briefly, what informed your interest to venture into law, considering a lot of intellectuals in the Gambia, including lawyers, uh, make a conscious decision to stay away from active politics, only to engage passively in politics, or even to write about politics. But I think you are one of the very courageous individuals who take that step to not only comment on politics but also to associate yourself with the political party in the Gambia as a lawyer. What informs this, and why UDP, and what, if any, impact do lawyer Usino Dabo has on you in your decision to join the UDP?
Okay, first and foremost, we need to understand that most people shy away from politics within a setting, within the Gambian setting, because our politics is toxic. Our politics is messy. Our politics is very degrading. You need to have a thick skin. You need to have the enabling to be able to survive Gambian political participation, albeit actively. And I believe this is the most. It is a valid reason for why most people shy away from politics. But politics is within our structures. It is within our everyday lives. We make political statements by our actions invariably. We make political statements by what we do passively. So we are all political actors, but some of us are more active than others in the sense that because of the toxicity of our politics, people tend to want to take the back seat. Nobody wants for your mother and father to be dragged into a political discourse. Nobody wants for your son and your daughter to be dragged into a political discourse. They have no business in your political affiliation and your political pronouncement. But the waters have been muddied when it comes to Gambian politics, where you cannot distinguish between personalities and issues. Now, we need to understand, and most people, I have had personal messages sent to me, private messages. I've had people ask me publicly, why is it that I have never heard you say anything ill about lawyer Usainu Dabo? And I have tried to explain that lawyer Usainu Dabo is a fine and distinguished man. I know this because I have walked with this man. I have lived around the surroundings with this man. I have walked paths with him professionally. And I know that he is a fine, distinguished man. Do I align and agree to all his policies politically? No. Must I follow it blindly because of my admiration for him? No. Because he is human.
Mhm,
He is bound to make mistakes. He's not infallible.
mhm,
He's not prone to mistakes. And therefore, me and lawyer Usainu Dabo can disagree on issues of policies, but it does not extend to personalities.
mhm,
I decided to join the United Democratic Party because I saw myself, my interest, aligned with that of the United Democratic Party. And I saw a leader that had integrity, a leader that had substance, a leader that is well grounded, a leader that puts people first before his own interests. He's a selfless gentleman, and that is the reality. And I wanted to associate myself with such a caliber of person, with such a character. And I felt it would have been dishonest of me to be on the sidelines. I don't have a personality of being on the frills. My personality is not passive. I have an active personality, and I had to be part of and associate with something I believe in, with something that I share. And at that time, it was right, it was proper, it was fitting, and I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever for aligning myself and my interests with the United Democratic Party. Because I still believe that lawyer Usainu Dabo is an excellent gentleman, an excellent person, and he is somebody, for as long as I live, I shall never disrespect. Is somebody, as long as I live, I will never speak a lie about. Can my political allegiance not shift? It can, because that is the ideals of democracy. Those are the fruits that I can enjoy within a democratic society. Just as I democratically decided to join and align with the United Democratic Party, and I was welcomed and I was celebrated for making that decision, it should be the same way when I, under those same principles, under those same guidelines, under those same democratic ideals, I am able to disassociate myself from the United Democratic Party because I disagree on issues of policies that no longer align with my own interest. That is called maturity in politics. And that is how our politics should be. Our politics should not and should never be reduced to such a toxic, sickening, and disgusting farce that it is today. So, yes, I joined the United Democratic Party because I believed in the ideals of His Excellency Lawyer Usainu Dabo. I believed in the pathway that the party was taking, and I believed in the policies of the party.
So you eventually ended up leaving, and part of the reasons that you set out, I think the main reason why you had to leave was, again, to the point that you mentioned, is you disagreed fundamentally with the position of the party as regards to the party's position and support for Honorable Tambadou, former Minister of the Ministry of Justice, for his nomination to the judicial international judicial office. I think was International Court of Justice. And so I think I've also publicly criticized that, and I actually made a video about it too, to say that I think Dabo needed to come out to be clear whether, the fact that allegations that indict Tambadou do not really matter to him or United Democratic Party, for him to basically make a distinction whether he was speaking as party leader of UDP or was speaking in his person as lawyer Dabo. But you ended up leaving anyway, and you made stated your principle as that you cannot no more align with the party. But even in that letter, you refuse to say anything, passional or damning about Dabo at all. Since you left, what has been your view of the party in terms of what direction that they continue to go?
Yes, I left the party, like you rightly said, after its endorsement of the candidature of um, um,
Batam.
Batambedu as an International Court of Justice judge. And I did this on principle, and one of which I hold no regrets, and I absolutely and solidly stand by. Now, I had been in a position, and I know you did mention that we would come to this, so I don't want to go into it substantively. But when we go into that part of the conversation, then I will speak on that. But I believe that the yardstick of measuring the character of an individual should be on the yardstick that they have used to measure and dish out justice to others. Now, there has been a plethora of allegations that have been labeled against Batambedo.
Mhm.
I believe that just as allegations were alleged against me, where Batambedu at the hem decided at that time that the presumption of innocence was just a rhetoric, that the presumption of innocence was just an abstract, that the presumption of innocence was theoretical, and that I personally should not enjoy the fruits of that in practical terms and reality. I do not believe that same should be availed to such an individual. And that is my principle that I solidly stand by. So I will not and cannot be part of an establishment, an institution, a political party that would progress the agenda of such an individual who I feel had not dispensed justice fairly and equitably with regards to me and my dealings. And yet still, I see that this individual is being promoted by an establishment that I am part of.
But what do you say to people that say that your leaving UDP was more personal than it was principle? Because it seems as though that your unresolved, perhaps, issues with Tambadou in his capacity as minister in regards to, and which you said we are going to get into the substance, but what do you say to the allegations that you had a personal issue with Tambadou, and that's the main reason why you're leaving UDP, and this has very little to do with principle?
But that is a very stupid and illogical and myopic allegation that does not make sense. It defies logic because your principle is based on your personal experience. Every principle, every position that a man takes is personal. I am a principled person because of my personality. I have my principles because of my existence. My personal issue with Tambadou is my principle for not aligning with Tambadou. That is solidly logical.
It is.
If my principle for not aligning with Tambadou was not personal and it was something else, that would have been hypocritical. Because I am not leaving that principle. I am not leaving that discourse, and I am not leaving that experience. So my principle, your principle, are shaped by your existence,
Certainly.
by your knowledge, by your ideals, by what you believe in, by what you stand for. When Tambadou resigned from the government, what did he advance as his reason for resigning as Attorney General and Minister of Justice? He could no longer work with the government because their interests no longer aligned. That was a personal decision based on his personal principle.
Mm-hmm.
So if I have no principle that is personal, I am a carcass. I cease to exist. And that is what is prevalent in Gambia.
Mm-hmm.
Because people don't take a principled stand based on what they believe, based on their existential reality. People take principled stance based on what is fashionable, what is trending, what aligns with their gain, and not what is principle, what they believe in. And that is why they sway. They sway like the wind, moving from pillar to post. And my mom always, I remember a saying when my mom was from a poem, I think she would always tell me, a rolling stone gathers no moss.
Mm-hmm.
A man should be principled and you should have conviction, because your conviction is what drives your principle in life. And your conviction is what you believe in. Your conviction is what you stand for. Your conviction is what you will fight for. And your conviction is what you are prepared to die for. I am a person and a man of conviction. I am ready to walk towards my convictions and my beliefs. I'm ready to fight for my conviction and my beliefs. and I am prepared to drop my last drop of blood. I'm ready to die for my principles, my convictions, and my beliefs. And that is what makes me. And I have absolutely no regrets.
So you have an ongoing case against the government of the Gambia at the ECOWAS Court. I think this came on the back of the government of the Gambia. I mean, opening an investigation against you for what some of the allegations that were put against you, I think, in 2019. And this was pretty controversial, part of, and I cannot imagine the how enduring that period must have been for you, because the in the Gambia is common knowledge that and not only Gambia but most parts of the world, like you said, there is always trial by the public, and it's extreme, it's brutal, and sometimes I think we victims, certainly, or the alleged victims, for example, we focus a lot on them, which is great because I think it's important, but we also lose sight of the other side of what they may be going through and the impact that may have on them and their families as well. So I think on in that sense, I really want to say that this may be uncomfortable, but if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to go there. But specifically your case against the Gambia government, because part of their investigation is their rape allegations, and according to them and their press statement, the case is still open. And after the investigation, you said earlier that you believe the outcome of the investigation is that you are exonerated, and that things were stolen from you or picked from your house when investigators came that were never returned to you, among others. So there are damages that you're claiming from Gambia government. Talk to us about what is the issue. Why is this case still open against you? And why is it so long for the case to be litigated and for an outcome of the case to for public interest? Because at the end of the day, the idea of justice delayed is justice denied. I think you and I and the rest of society can relate with that too. But part of what the government of the Gambia is doing is you're self-exiling yourself. You're in UK, and that they can close the case file unless you are in the Gambia, and they can prosecute you. They can arrest you and prosecute you. So if you would really walk us through what is going on with that case and why you choose to go to the court to seek redress against the Gambia government.
Okay. So I'll answer this systematically, chronologically, as you have asked the question. So the first misconception that I want to clarify, or before I get to the misconception, let me say, yes, I am very comfortable answering every question, and I will answer every question. So I am not going to back down from answering anything. That's the first thing.
Thank you.
The first misconception I want to address, and I think this is a brilliant platform to do so, is that I have no case. It is a lie. I have absolutely no case. And even if you look at the Ministry of Justice press release, it will tell you that I have no case. Okay? Now, I'll tell you why. So, one, I do not have a case pending at the ECOWAS Court. I have received judgment from the ECOWAS Court. The Gambia, the state of Gambia, is yet to obey and fulfill the judgment of the ECOWAS Court, which was granted over a year ago. That's the first thing, and I want to establish that. I decided to take the Gambia to the ECOWAS Court, and this was subsequent to me taking the state of Gambia, the Attorney General, and the Inspector General of Police to the High Court of the Gambia. Because what happened was, when the police allegedly claimed that they were conducting a search at my house, what they did was to take properties from my house, which had no business whatsoever to do with the allegations that they were investigating. There was no business taking jewelries, gold, silver, things that belonged to my mom, laptops, and so it had absolutely nothing to do with the investigation. And the way and manner that it was clandestinely taken away from my house is also an issue that brought about the fact that it informed my belief that it was meant to be stolen. Because the police went to the premises, to my house, on the first day and did a search, but my cousin was there with her husband. My cousin was in the bedroom, and therefore they couldn't take away things. Now, after they have conducted the search, they came back and returned the next day at 10 p.m. at night, which was outside the scope and mandatory time within the as prescribed by law for them to enter that property to conduct a search. And this time around, what the police did was to tell my cousin that she should stay outside of the bedroom, that if she does not do that, they will charge her for obstructing the police whilst executing their function, their official duties. And that was when they took the jewelry. But of course, one thing they missed and did not know was I had CCTV cameras installed in my property. So that was one. So what I did was I went to the Gambia. So when I see people write to say that he's a fugitive, and in fact the minister, it's a blatant lie. That's a misconception. That's a misrepresentation of the facts.
He's
Because
been
it is public knowledge that after the allegations, I returned to the Gambia and I stayed in the Gambia for 3 months. It is public knowledge. I can show you newspaper articles. I can show you pictures. You can talk to people in the Gambia. If I had not been to the Gambia, how did the police interrogate me? That's common sense, isn't it?
Yes.
As a lawyer, I knew that I was innocent of the allegations. I knew they were baseless. I knew they had no iota of truth in them. I knew that. I knew that everything that was being bandied on social media were nothing but blatant lies about evidences that they haven't. So I knew it was a lie because I knew that the allegations never occurred. So I returned to the Gambia voluntarily. And remember, when I was returning to the Gambia, it was after the state had declared that they had a search warrant and an arrest warrant for me. And that is why I still have a loud voice to speak. And that is why when the Ministry of Justice released that bogus press release, I attacked it with a solid, substantive rebuttal. And that is why the press release could not take any traction. In fact, I don't know if you saw it, but if you go into the Ministry of Justice Facebook page where the press release was published, it was the first time in Gambia's history that the Ministry of Justice published a press release, and the entire commentary was people attacking the press release as bogus and false. Because the unsuspecting Gambian public are no more gullible. You can no more feed them with trash. And therefore, regardless of what has been alleged, the respect I command within Gambian society is way greater than I had ever experienced in my life. And that is because people have the ability to reason for themselves. People are not stupid. I took the Gambia to the ECOWAS Court for one primary reason. Because as a lawyer, I knew as
Melvin, I'm with you. That's a runtime for us to lose Melvin, but I'll have him right back. Yes, Melvin, please proceed. Sorry about that.
so yeah, I was just having a go. So as a lawyer, I had tried everything for several years, including when I was in the Gambia, for the police to hand me the report of their investigation. Don't you think, is it not logical? Is it not common sense that that a person has been alleged of a crime? The person was outside of the jurisdiction. I was living in the United Kingdom. So when I see, some idiots, I would say, saying, oh, he's in exile, he didn't return home, he's run away. Where was I? I had already left the Gambia. I had already left the Gambia. I was not in the Gambia. So what did I run away from? What did I run away from? So that is not true. So after all of this, I returned to the Gambia. And that shows you, and this is what I keep saying, I'm a real man. How many people? I am the first Gambian. I am the first Gambian alive. And I tell you this because I do extensive research. And I am a lawyer. I read case law. I read case authorities. I am the first Gambian man where my face was put on the front page of the Standard newspaper that there was a warrant of arrest for Melville. And I voluntarily bought my own ticket and returned to the shores of Gambia. Who has the audacity to do that? Who has the balls to do that? I can tell you for free. I can tell you for free. If the current Attorney General, Dawda Jallow, and Minister of Justice had his face on the front page of any Gambian newspaper, that an arrest warrant was issued for him and he was a wanted man, he would never step his foot on Gambian soil. I did that. Do you know how many people during the time of Jammeh were declared wanted? Did you see them step foot in Gambia? These are the same goons that would ask, oh, why is he living in England? I'm living in England by choice. Do you know what my immigration status is in the UK right now? If I leave and go to the Gambia, what am I going to do? To please a segment of society that seem to ask bogus and irrelevant questions? That's nonsensical. I don't play to the gallery. And I don't dance theatrics with my life. I went to the Gambia, and not only that, when I arrived in the Gambia, I made it public. I went on my Facebook and I wrote that I had arrived in the Gambia and I will be presenting myself before the competent authority that is vested with the powers of investigations in the Gambia, and that was the police. The Ministry of Justice has no legal power, no legal authority to investigate any crime. It is the police. And I presented myself squarely before the police and the investigators, before a panel of 8 senior police officers, and in the presence of my lawyers. What were the evidences presented to me? Nothing. I sat in that office from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. after they had written every sort of nasty allegations on social media. And the police invited the accused persons, the alleged accused persons, to come to the police station. They never showed up. I am speaking publicly on record. The police can issue a press release tomorrow and say that Melville is lying. But I'll tell you this, my every single step in the Gambia was recorded and documented because I knew the society I was dealing with. And I was always one step ahead of them. Everything was recorded. I was in the Gambia. I went to the police station over 7 times, and not once did the accused person show up. And they were called in my presence. And all of these people were friends. I can present pictures of them being together. And I could tell you, L.S. Camara is alive. He's not dead. Johnny Jai, the lawyer, he's alive. He's not dead. Lawyer Peter Calvert Mendy, he's alive. He's not dead. They were all present. Not a single shred of evidence was presented to me. Not a single allegation was corroborated, nor by tangible evidence, nor by facts, nor by corroboration of witness evidences. It was all blatant lies. But I'll tell you what, until I left the shores of the Gambia, the Ministry of Justice refused and sat on the police report because they never wanted to avail me the police report. Now, does that not defy logic? You investigated something on me. You came to a conclusion. You had your fact findings. You had a report. Am I not entitled to that report
You are.
as the accused person?
You are.
So I'll tell you why I went to the ECOWAS court. Because I always believed that if the Gambia had a defense at the ECOWAS court, it would be the substance of the police investigation. And they would have filed it at the ECOWAS court, and I would have had a copy. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Because that would have been their defense.
Yes.
That okay, Melville has taken the Gambia, the state of Gambia. I did not take one person. I took the entire state of Gambia to the ECOWAS court. The solid defense, logically, for the Gambia was to present the police report on the investigation of Melville to the ECOWAS court and say, this guy is a wanted man in the Gambia. This guy has been found wanting. The police report, extensive, is here and blah, blah, blah. This is it. Is that not a solid defense for the Gambia? That would have been it. And then the ECOWAS court would have said, Melville, you're a wanted man. The state of Gambia has presented credible evidence. Did they do that? No. Because I have challenged them year after year, day after day, produce the police report and publish it for the entire Gambia to see that Melville is guilty. They don't have the balls to do that. And you know why? Because it is based on dishonesty and fraud and lies. What they want is to silence me so that Melville would not speak about any ill of governance. I would not say nothing against the Attorney General. I would not say anything against the Ministry of Justice. And every time Melville says something, will come out with a press release to threaten him. But they realized the last time they issued a press release that I am not susceptible to threats. You don't threaten Melville. Because when you threaten me with lies, I confront you with facts and the undiluted truth. Now,
What? Sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Now, the question is that every Gambian should have asked, every rational thinking Gambian should have asked, is why issue a press release 7 years, 2019, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 7 years. Why issue a press release 7 years after the fact? You know why? Because I was writing about the Attorney General and Ministry of Justice, and they felt when the pinch got to them, when it was too tight, when it was suffocating, the only way we can do this is to issue a press release. It was bogus. It was rubbish, written in backward English, not fit for human consumption. And that is why my rebuttal still stands. And thirdly, people have asked, I have kids that I take care of. I have a family that depends on me. I am a lawyer. I know the justice system in my country. I understand it better than most people do. You have Usainu Boja, the alleged shooter of the cops. Every single Gambian alive knows that man is innocent. You don't need a court judgment to validate that. But where is Usainu Boja? He's in Mile 2 Central Prisons for 3 years. That is what they want. That is all they have over me. Because I can tell you, I have spoken to the Attorney General and I have him on record and he knows that. I have spoken to staffers at the Justice Ministry. I have a copy of the police report. The Standard newspaper has a copy of that police report. And they all know I am immaculately innocent. But they know that I am not stupid or callous to go to the Gambia, because I know there is no court of competent jurisdiction based on law and justice that can ever convict me for a crime that I did not commit. But am I willing to go sit in remand for the Ministry of Justice to drag that case for 3-4 years whilst my kids and my children suffer?
Mm-hmm.
That is not bravery. That is stupidity of the highest order. And I refuse to succumb to such nonsense. Banta Keita, the invincible Banta Keita, very invincible. You don't know him, I don't know him. No
Mm-hmm.
Gambian alive knows who Banta Keita is. Is he not being tried in absentia? Is he not being tried in absentia? The Gambia has an extradition treaty with the United Kingdom. Do you know that?
I didn't know that.
Do you know there's Interpol? Why did the Gambia government not extradite me to try me?
And the allegations against you are so serious, and I think also to your point, if allegations of rape are not small, they're so serious, and it's been many, many years. So I think if the government is serious about standing up for the rights of the victims of these allegations, I think a lot could have been done. So I think to your point, that I didn't know there's an extradition treaty between Gambia and the UK, but there's also Interpol. So I'm not sure why
Oh,
they've not.
I can tell you. I can tell you why. I can tell you why.
Yes, yes.
Because extradition requests are not abstract. You just don't, just because there's a treaty present, you just don't write and say, I want to extradite um, Usainu, Ibrahim Sonko from the United States. You have to show just cause. You have to lay down solid evidence of
Probably
the
so.
tallest order.
Hmm.
An extradition request goes to court. So you cannot do that on lies. You cannot do that on bogus facts. You can't.
Yeah.
And that is the truth.
Well, Mel, we could go on, and really thank you for clarifying that. I think that's important. I think a lot of Gambians really are interested to know about this story. And it's funny because I think Pamodu Bojang of mistakenly shared the press release again. When I saw the press release, I'm like, dude, this is same press release from the past. Why is this popping up again? But I'm glad that he put out a message to clarify that. And we have literally less than 8 more minutes to wrap this conversation up. And I really would like to ask you also about the subject of Mr. Tangara, the former Minister of Foreign Affairs as well.
Before we get to Tangara, let me just say this.
Okay,
Because I missed that part. So
okay.
I took the Attorney General and the Inspector General of Police to court in the Gambia, and I won hands down against the state. And I was awarded $50,000, and $500,000 is in cost. The judgment is public record. I went to the ECOWAS court. I was awarded $10,000, and the state of Gambia was given 3 months from that judgment to formally indict me or declare that I am innocent. It was never complied with to this date.
Yeah,
So
that's great. Hmm.
as it stands, and regardless of what they think about me, and like I always say, there will be a Pharaoh that doesn't know Moses. It's a judgment that stands, it subsists.
Hmm.
And I will enjoy the fruits of that judgment, inshallah, by the grace of God. Even if I'm not alive, my kids will, because it is my God given right. And that takes you back to respect for the rule of law, to democratic ideals, because a government that is serious, a government that prides itself in democracy and democratic ideals and respect for the rule of law will adhere to court judgments and respect them.
Well, Melvin, finally, would really like to ask you about a lot of speculations about your politics since you left the UDP, and your public defense of senior counsel, Ms. Amy Bensouda, when she came under public scrutiny in light of disposition of Jambe's assets. I think there's a lot of speculations. People are arguing that you're part of now the United Movement for Change, or at least you have some association with them. But also, you widely and publicly always support and defend the person of Mr. Tangara, as I think your former colleague from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Gambia as well. And if you would just wrap this up in, say, 3 minutes to talk to us about where your political leanings are right now in the Gambia, but also what sort of relationship or admiration, or what informs your admiration for Mr. Tangara, and we can just wrap this up.
Mr. Tangara, His Excellency Mr. Tangara, Dr. Tangara, is a formidable Gambian diplomat. He's a person of character and substance, a man of integrity of the tallest order. Have you ever seen or have you ever heard adversely Dr. Tangara being mentioned in any acts of corruption in the Gambia? No. Now, what I hate and what I am passionately and fiercely against is injustice that are selective injustice by people of selective amnesia. You cannot fight Dr. Tangara based on his association with Jammeh and hail a Sidi Njai, who's the deputy speaker, who had more close proximity to Jammeh than Dr. Tangara ever did. Dr. Tangara did not accompany Jammeh to Equatorial Guinea. Honorable Sidi Njai did. But he is the brand and face of the current government. The former Minister of Finance, Mambure Njai, was a former finance minister in Jammeh's regime. If you don't hold him accountable on the yardstick that he associated with Jammeh, you cannot do the same for Dr. Tangara. That is hypocritical. It is demonic. It is witchcraft of the tallest order. Dr. Tangara never said that Barrow would never be sworn in the Gambia. Honorable Sidi Njai did. But I respect him for that because it shows that he is a man of character. He supports until the very last what he believes in. That is a true person. Fabakary Tombong Jatta is the Speaker of the National Assembly. He's third in line to the presidency in the Gambia. Who has more close ties to Jammeh than Fabakary Tombong Jatta? So for that reason, I believe the fight against Dr. Tangara was misplaced, was selective, holds no water, and it was out of malice, wickedness, envy, jealousy, and pure evil. And I can tell you authoritatively that Dr. Tangara is one of the finest and most distinguished Gambian diplomat ever that the Gambia produced. So I believe in him, and I stood by him for that reason.
But
Now, to Ami Bensouda.
Wrap up. We have a minute. We gotta close.
Ami Bensouda is a distinguished lawyer, a person who I believe never headed the Janet Commission, a person who I believe cannot be tainted for the failures of the Janet Commission because she was not a commissioner. And I believe that she has never been found wanting by a court of law. She's presented herself to the National Assembly Select Committee looking into the affairs of Jammeh, and she came out crystal clean. So that is a distinguished woman that I will not allow for anyone to brandish in a different manner and to be seen in a different light. Talib Bensouda is a distinguished man, a fine gentleman, and a person that I believe has the character has the substantive wherewithal to lead the Gambia.